barakatuh. My name is Mustafa Masood and you are watching the Awaited, the show that's exclusively dedicated to the Imam of our time, Al-Mahdi Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. I am delighted to be joined by Shaykh Mohamed Abbas Panju. The Shaykh at the moment is residing in London after a stay in Najaf Al-Ashraf and Dimashq, where he has been studying in the Hawza there for the last 5 years. The Shaykh at the moment is the resident alim of the Haidari Center in South London, and he has given up some time to be with us today for this show, The Awaited. On behalf of the viewers, Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhna wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to coming up on this channel. Ahsantum.
We thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. We know that you have to partake in this show, the show that's dedicated to the Imam of our time. And inshallah we can see you a few more episodes with yourself, and inshallah we will benefit the viewers with your knowledge about the Imam of our time. Today's episode, Shaykhna, we are discussing the 5 major signs of the reappearance of the Imam. And as we discussed before the show, you have made a small research into these 5 issues, and inshallah we will tackle them in depth in this show. Just before we go into depth into the signs of the reappearance of the Imam, the question arises to those that do not know anything about the Imam. Why did the Imam Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif go into this ghaiba, into this occultation?
We can answer this question from 2 simple perspectives. No, the first perspective is that the Imam went into an occultation on order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that his life may be preserved from killing. If you look at the forefathers of our 12th Imam, his father Imam al-Askari, his grandfather Imam al-Hadi, all the way to Amir al-Mu'mineen, each and every one of the Imams prior to our 12th Imam were martyred, either through the sword or through the poison. For had the Imam not gone into ghaiba, his outcome would have been the same outcome as those of his forefathers and that of his father. He would have been martyred, either poisoned or killed by the sword, just during the time of his, or the beginning stages of his imama. At the tender age of 5, 6 or 7, the Abbasid Khalifa would have put an end to his life, especially because of the manifestation of the hadith that this Imam was the awaited Mahdi, who would fill the earth with peace and justice, who would bring every tyrant government to a fall. So for the Abbasid Empire, for that Khilafah to see that their empire would fall down at the hands of this Imam, they would not have hesitated for even the blink of an eye in bringing the life of our Imam to an end. And for the period that he was there, even before Ghaibat al-Sughra, these few days that passed by after the death of Imam al-Askari, when they knew that the Imam has got an heir and that a son has been born, they tried a number of times into bringing an end to the life of the Imam. So the first reason that the Imam went into occultation was that so that his life would be safeguarded. This is number 1. Number 2, there is the concept or the philosophy of imtihan. Imtihan for the Muslim Ummah, in that can they remain steadfast in their faith? Can they continue to practice the principles of Islam and have their faith in Wilaya and the Imama steadfast despite not having consistent or constant access towards the Imam? Does the Ummah obey the Imam? Are they ready to follow every command of the Imam despite not having the privilege of meeting the Imam, seeing the Imam? It's a test, it's an imtihan ilahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For from these 2 basic dimensions we are able to answer the concept of ghaiba.
As mentioned, we're talking about the signs. There are many signs into the reappearance of the Imam that we will see inshallah, and we will discuss. from them are the major signs, and there's also the smaller signs. Before we discuss the signs, where do we get these signs from? What narrations are there that we have come to the conclusion that these are the major signs?
Right. There are a number of books that have been written about occultation of our 12th Imam and the signs preceding the dhuhur or the reappearance. So you will find, for example, in Kitab al-Kafi, widespread by Shaykh Kulaini across his book Usul al-Kafi, you will see that signs of the signs preceding the reappearance of our 12th Imam are mentioned. There is Kitab al-Ghaiba by Shaykh Nu'mani that has been specifically compiled in regards to the signs preceding the dhuhur of our 12th Imam. And as well in Biharul Anwar, you will see in Biharul Anwar the work being a massive work by Allama Majlisi rahmatullah alayh, including just about 110 volumes in today's publications. There have been publishing stores, for example, from Lebanon, where they have extracted these hadith from Biharul Anwar that talk about the 12th Imam, over 110 volumes, and they have come up with a 2 or 3 volume work written or entitled Imam al-Mahdi fi Biharul Anwar, for example. So they have compiled, they have gone through all the hard work of gathering these hadith from 110 volumes, they've isolated them, and they've made up a mini compilation of these traditions that talk about the nature of the dhuhur, or the people who have met the Imam during the Ghaiba, for example. And then as well there is a book about the 12th Imam from birth until reappearance, written by the late Khatib Allama Murtada Kazwini, or Allama Kadhim al-Kazwini. So he's written a good book on the signs resulting or just preceding the dhuhur of the 12th Imam. So from these books a person is able to sit down, study, and then extract from them the major signs that will precede the reappearance of our 12th Imam.
Let's start looking at these signs, and we've divided them into 2 categories. The signs that denote a timeline and those that don't denote a timeline. Just for the viewers' sakes, what's the difference between these 2 categories?
Sure. When a person looks into the hadith that talk about the reappearance of our 12th Imam, you can categorize them into 2, as you said. One set of hadith denote or represent a timeline. When you look at these hadith, they talk about events that will show us that the time leading towards the reappearance of our 12th Imam is becoming closer and closer. These events either signify the Imam will come out during that year, or will come out in the years very close to this event happening. So they denote a timeline. You can safely say that the time period towards the reappearance of the Imam is becoming closer and closer. So this is one set of signs, and these set of signs are again divided into 2, mahtum and ghair mahtum, meaning they are absolute signs and they are contingent signs. This is one, those that represent the timeline. The second type of traditions that do not necessarily represent a timeline, but they speak about the general geopolitical or the general social state of the environment, of the communities before the reappearance of the 12th Imam. So they show us the general state of the community. They do not necessarily give us an idea of when the Imam will reappear. Yeah. So for example, one of the hadith that do not represent a timeline, they just give us an idea of the general state of the community or the people. You see, for example, we have a narration listed by Shaykh Saduq. He records this tradition where he says once Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi was sitting in Masjid al-Kufa, and he asked the people, Salluni qablan tafqiduni. 3 times Amirul Mu'mineen asked this. Nobody stood up. The 3rd time, Sa'sa, one of the great companions of Amirul Mu'mineen, he stands up and he asks him, Ya Amirul Mu'mineen, when will the Dajjal reappear? So Amirul Mu'mineen answers back to him by giving him some signs of the state of the community towards the end of time. So he says, for example, إِذَا أَمَاتَ النَّاسُ الصَّلَاةِ وَأَضَاءُوا الْأَمَانَةِ وَبَاعُوا الدِّينَ بِالدُّنْيَا. So he says at a time where people will have killed the salat. And what do we mean by killed by salat? They will be praying salah, Salah will be present there in the way that we see it. Qiyam, ruku, sujood, tashahud. People will be praying, but the essence of salah will not be there. This idea of salah being the mi'raj of a mu'min, it will not be there. The effect of salah, or the effect that salah is supposed to have on a person and the characteristic of a person, will not be there. So salah in its essence will be dead. Amana, the trust that will be given to a people, will not be honored, whether regardless of whether it is trust in terms of wealth, where somebody may give me wealth for safeguarding, but I usurp that wealth, or even amana can be kalam. Al-kalam amana, if somebody trusts me with a secret of theirs and I go ahead and I spill out that secret, I do not keep the sanctity of that amana. I do not honor the safeguarding of any other person. Signs like these which are rampant in the community, or which are widespread. And then the third one, which Amir al-Mu'mineen says, which is probably has the highest implication on the Muslim ummah or on the state of the ummah. It says waba'uddin with dunya. Allahu Akbar. There are those people who sell the religion for the dunya. Those people who sell their faith for this world. Religion is seen as a money-making instrument. Religion is seen as a business. And they do not mind selling the religion and altering the principles of the religion in exchange for a check, in exchange for cash. So Amir al-Mu'mineen says that this will be the state of the ummah before the Dajjal reappears, or before the 12th Imam reappears. Now, this does not necessarily denote a timeline, in that when this happens, the Imam will come out or will reappear in the following year, or after 2 years, or after 3 years. The state of the community could be like this, for example, for 50 years, 60 years, Allahu Alam. But the state of the community will be such. So this is the first type of signs that are given to us that talk about the reappearance of the 12th Imam. They show us the general state of the community and the prevalent facade that will be there.
This could be a state that we're already in, maybe.
Absolutely.
Because, for example, the essence of salah is sometimes forgotten.
Yes.
Even the amana is sometimes broken, as we see, not only in smaller communities but in the wider communities. And obviously the selling of the faith for the dunya. I think the worldly desires have an effect on a lot of people these days. So this is one that can go on for many years. It has no timeline from our understanding.
Absolutely.
And an example of something that maybe that has that denotes a timeline.
Right.
What could be a sign that we have?
The ahadith that talk or that represent a timeline, that denote a timeline, can be divided into two types. As we said, they are divided into mahtum and ghair mahtum.
Which means, Shaykh?
The ghair mahtum are those signs that are contingent. Yani they may happen, they may not happen. It's a 50-50 chance. And there are those set of signs that will 100% absolutely most definitely happen before the dhuhr of the 12th Imam. And in addition to their 100% occurrence, they denote a timeline where a mu'min, a Shia, when he sees these events unfolding, he himself is able to calculate and predict for himself the dhuhr of the 12th Imam happening within that year or within the coming months. So when we look into these hadith, again, what we do say is, or what we are trying to say is, that the mu'min has an idea of when the 12th Imam is going to come, in that year, when the events fall out. We are not saying over here that we are predicting, for example, in the year 2015 or the year 2020 the Imam will come out, because there are hadith that are against it, where the Imam says la'natullah ala al-waqatin. So when we look at these signs that denote a timeline, they cannot be applied in advance, where I cannot say, okay, in the year 2020 or 2015 100% of the Imam is going to come out. But when these events in themselves play out, we know within that year the dhuhr will happen. In regards, or an example for the hadith that are ghair mahtum, those that are contingent. For example, you will find the hadith that talk about a third world war, where again Amir al-Mu'mineen is reported to have said, and that لا يخرج المهدي حتى يقتل ثلث ويموت ثلث ويبقى الثلث. He says that the Mahdi will not reappear until 1/3 of the population has been killed. Another 1/3 of the population dies out of sickness, and the remaining 1/3 remains. Excuse me. So when we look into this tradition where the Imam says 1/3 of the population will be killed, yani you look at the global population now, Habibi Mustafa, give or take, we're 6 billion people. 1/3 of this population, yani 2 billion people. Imagine a scenario where 2 billion of the world population has been killed due to war. You look at the Iran-Iraq war that had happened, 1 million people died, catastrophe. You look at the genocide that had happened in Rwanda, a good decade back or so, 1 million people died. And the world went crazy.
Over 1 million.
Over 1 million people. Truly, it was a gruesome scene to see 1 million people or 1 million dead bodies scattered everywhere across these two countries, for example. Excuse me. So imagine what would be the state of the world when 2 billion people have been killed. Yeah. This denotes a world war. However, this is a sign that is غير محتوم. Maybe it may occur, maybe it does not occur, depending on the geopolitical state of the countries or of the world at that time. Perhaps this war could happen where 2 billion people are killed. Perhaps it could not happen. So it is a contingency sign.
How do we distinguish between a mahtoom and a غير mahtoom? Is there a specific criteria that we follow to distinguish between these signs that may occur and the signs that...
When a person reads into the hadith and takes them cumulatively, all these hadith that talk about the dhuhur, a person is able to tell, or the mufassirin are then able to tell, that these category of signs are contingent signs. We have qara'in or a karina from the hadith or from the words of the imams that will state that this may happen, may not happen. It's contingent, it may happen, it may not happen. And there are some signs where the imams have specifically mentioned that these 5 or 7 signs, for example, will 100% definitely happen before the dhuhur of the imam. So when a person studies the hadith together, he's able to draw out from conclusions, or is given certain indications by studying all the ahadith collectively, that these signs will possibly happen, possibly not happen. So he's able to distinguish from this side.
Inshallah, we will go into the actual signs in the second part of the show. Just before we go into these signs, if we can just tell the viewers what are the main books that they could go into to do a further research on these mahtoom and غير mahtoom.
Right.
Maybe simpler books rather than Bihar al-Anwar or books that are more complicated. Is there more simpler books that we can be read into the research of these signs?
I believe Kitab al-Ghaiba by Shaykh Nu'mani would be a very good book to start with.
Is it also translated into English?
I believe it is translated in English as well. And there is a second book again written about the 12th Imam by Shahid Sadr. I believe it's been translated as well, and it has a good history.
Yes.
Exactly, about Ghaibat al-Sughra and the Nawab that were there and the signs preceding to the arrival of the 12th Imam. These would be good books to begin for a person, so that he can become more acquainted and familiar with the signs of our 12th Imam.
Thank you. You have benefited us in this first part. Inshallah, we will benefit from the Shaykh in the second part as we go into detail into the signs, the major signs of the reappearance of the Imam Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. We are going for a short break. Inshallah, we will see you in the second part. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.